What's going on, guys? It's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and we have one episode left in all of Game of Thrones. They are going to stick the landing with every major plot thread that's dangling and deliver all of the answers that we ever wanted from the entire show. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if you guys believe that, but we're going to at least settle down for the last episode. And of course, we have a million questions that we really want answered. But what we did was, instead of doing a full-on prediction video, we decided to pull together the big unanswered questions that we really hope the Game of Thrones series finale answers for us. Before we dive into all of those, do me a favor, go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. We're going to continue to do Game of Thrones type content, entertainment content, and another reaction series afterwards, and you don't want to miss out on any of this. All right, obviously the big question is anyone actually going to win the Iron Throne? I mean, the show is called Game of Thrones, and for the most part, over the course of all these different seasons, we've been working our way towards somebody ultimately winning the throne. And there have been theories that, yes, even when you get into the throne, you're only in it for a short amount of time, but we sort of thought that one of the big players, whether it be Jon or Sansa or Dany or Cersei, were going to end up triumphing over everybody else and earning the throne. So I hope that the last episode of this entire show finally explains whether one of these people that we've been following over the course of 8 seasons wins the throne. I kind of want to know if the point of Jon Snow's heritage is ever going to be explained. That was a huge secret, and there were all these theories about who his true mom and dad might be, and then when it came out, it created a problem between he and Dany.
It's true, Dany. I know it is.
And I guess, ultimately, if we take a step back, Dany finding out about Jon's true heritage could be one of the factors that led to her going insane and deciding to burn all of King's Landing to the ground. But I hope that there's more to it. I hope that there's more that pushes Jon Snow into a position, pushes Dany into a position, and that the true meaning behind his parents, his actual parents, plays a more significant part in the overall story of Game of Thrones. So we need to find out, A, is anyone actually going to get the Iron Throne? Is the Iron Throne even still standing after King's Landing burns to the ground? And what does Jon's heritage actually have to do with this whole big equation? While we're talking about Dany and Cersei, I want to go back to that major prophecy at the beginning of season 5 and all of the things that have come true in that prophecy up to this point. This is when we saw young Cersei learning about what was going to happen to her, and all of these things have happened. It was prophesized that her children were going to die. It was prophesized that she would marry the king, in this case Robert, and not have children with them. But one of the major parts of that prophecy is that
you'll be queen for a time. And comes another, younger, more beautiful, to cast you down and take all you hold dear.
There has been a theory that the character that the prophecy referenced was actually Marjorie, and yeah, I can kind of understand the fact that because Marjorie married 2 of Cersei's children and actually became queen not once but twice, that she kind of cast Cersei out of the throne in those moments. But I think that Cersei was still sort of pulling the strings behind the scenes during both of those marriages, and ultimately Cersei triumphed over Marjorie, so I don't believe that she's the answer to that prophecy. So the question becomes, is that Dany and all the actions that she just did in the previous episode to knock Cersei out of the throne? Or could it actually be Sansa? Because there are a lot of people out there, and I'm starting to feel like one of those people in that group, who believes that everything is sort of setting up for Sansa to become the ruler of whatever is left. Now, is it actually the 7 Kingdoms? Is it going to be the North? We'll get to that point in a little bit, because that's another point that I think bears exploration. But who is that younger, more beautiful woman that's ultimately going to dethrone Cersei? We're going to find out if it's Dany or Sansa or potentially someone else. Okay, on to an even bigger question. Does the Iron Bank even matter anymore? When the Golden Company got wiped out by Dany's dragon, it sort of threw into chaos the fact that Cersei essentially rented this force and was going to use them to hold on to the Iron Throne. And from whenever we saw the Iron Bank in play in previous seasons, they were always sort of scheming behind the scenes to see who they were going to back with money and power. Well, they put their chips behind Cersei and believed that she would be the one to prevail, but obviously she's not left, and basically no one in King's Landing is left. So it begs the question, is the Iron Bank going to have any sort of power over what's left? we really kind of want to know, like, what's going to be standing, what sort of power structure is still in play. Does everything that we sort of believed about the way that the Game of Thrones is played is just thrown completely to the wind going into this final episode? And don't you wish we had more than one episode to explore all of these unanswered questions? So far, these are all big picture questions, but I want to go to an immediate question that was brought up in the previous episode, which is, who was Varys writing to right before he died? We actually saw at the beginning of the episode that he was penning a note to somebody explaining the true nature of Jon's heritage, which is something that we addressed in an earlier question. But who is he writing to? I'm really curious. Like, once this secret gets out, obviously Dany understands that more people are going to back Jon Snow, because when she said that this whole thing comes down to love or fear, she chose fear, obviously, and she was going to instill this, making sure that everybody who was left in the realm, not that there's anyone left in King's Landing, but whoever was left in the realm was going to be terrified by her and the brute force of her dragons. But she understood that the people who wanted to back Jon would be because they support him. Varys understood this too, and he wanted to get the word out that Jon Snow had a more rightful claim to the throne. Now again, we don't know if the throne even stands, but it does feel like this final episode is going to come down to a Jon versus Dany divide, and people joining one or the other camp. So I'm super curious about who Varys was writing to get this information out, because he always believed that information was power. That was definitely one of his mantras, and he wanted somebody significant to know this about Jon Snow, and so I want to find out who. While we're on the topic of Varys, there's a lot of people who still want to know what the voice in the flames said to him. There have been a lot of speculations over the course of his life, some of it tied to magic and some of it just tied to political machinations behind what's going on in the Game of Thrones, of Varys learning specific things about his past and about other people's past. And the one that was most intriguing was, as he told his story about how he came to be, he heard this voice speaking to him from the flames. We don't really know necessarily what was said or who said it, and a lot of people believed that answer was going to be significant. Unfortunately, it feels like with only one episode left, that's going to get chalked up to any number of things in Game of Thrones that we thought was really important and ended up being not important at all, or at least not important enough for the showrunners to address. But we have one episode left to find out, so hopefully we'll find out a little bit more about the voice that came from the flames. Okay, here's another big question, and it's making me realize as I go through all of these that this last episode has to be about a week long if I really want the showrunners to address every single point that I'm bringing up here. And believe me, by the end of this video, I'm going to get to a laundry list of questions that we still have that we don't believe are ever going to get addressed, but this one has to do with the North. So we left Sansa in the North with a number of key players, whether it be Tormund or Brienne of Tarth, and we believed for a minute that we were never going to see them again, right? That this was a farewell to them, and everything was going to get concluded at King's Landing. But we have 90 minutes or so left to wrap everything up, and so we want to find out, is the North actually going to stay in the Seven Kingdoms? Like, what is going to be left of the map once Dany has her final say? And does Dany even get a final say? Is it going to be Jon knocking Dany off? Is it going to be Sansa? Sansa always wanted to sort of keep the North separate, was not supportive of Dany's moves, seems to be pulling some major strings behind the scenes to work against Dany and protect the North. She's always of the mindset, and was sort of saying this to Jon too, like, you belong with the Starks, you belong with the North. This might not be our fight. Don't back her. That has to be concluded somehow. I believe that Sansa still has a major play that she has to sort of work out. It'll be something to do with solidifying the North, maybe separating it from what we used to know as the Seven Kingdoms and the Realm, maybe potentially moving the seat of power away from King's Landing, which doesn't exist as we used to know it, and putting it in Winterfell. These are things that I think are going to happen, which probably means that the final show won't address them at all. All right, one thing that I really hope the final episode touches on is the magic north of the wall. And what does Bran know, and did that ever really matter? I just think a lot of people had a really hard time accepting the fact that this major threat that was teased to us over the course of 7 full seasons in the army of the dead that were coming from the north, and winter is coming, and the Night King, and all this stuff, was resolved relatively quickly at the Battle of Winterfell, and Arya, killing the Night King just got rid of the White Walkers. So some people are holding on to hope that the White Walkers still have something significant to contribute in this final show of the entire series, but really I think we got to put that back on the shelf because it feels like that part of the show, as major as it was and as intriguing as it was, and what a great threat it was for 7 full seasons, I think it's done. I mean, I think the show has moved on, but we're also going to tune in on Sunday to find out if the White Walkers have anything else to contribute to the overall story, and if there is any truth to that theory that there always has to be a Night King, and so it might be somebody else. All right, like I said, we're basically just scratching the surface of major questions that we hope that the series finale answers, and that's not even getting to a lot of these other big questions that if we could, we'd want to hear the answers to. Things like, where has Robin Arryn been? Robin Arryn's my boy! I want him to come back to the story somehow. What is going on in Essos? Like, is Dario really holding the cities for Dany still to this point? Who was Gendry's mom? Is she important? We know that Robert was his father, but what's the significance of who his mom was? Bran and Tyrion had a major conversation. What did he tell him? Is it significant? What does Bran do? Are we ever going to find out where Bran warged off to during the Battle of Winterfell? Was that significant? We thought he was going to jump into a dragon. Is he responsible for the white horse that rescues Arya? Is that really like a horse Uber that was going to get Arya out of King's Landing? Is Tyrion actually Tywin Lannister's son, or did Tywin just hate him enough to always sort of have him doubting his parentage? Why is Pod so good at sex? What does Pod do that has the ladies going crazy? Did Mira survive? Mira was an important character for a long time when we thought that Bran mattered to the show. Did she survive? Is she dead? Are we going to see anything about her? What about Arya? Is she still a faceless man? Why did Jaqen just let her go? Is it part of this bigger prophecy that she had to kill the Night King? I can't understand what happened with that entire training session at the House of Black and White. What did any of it mean? And did Arya get a chance to knock everybody else off of her list? Who's the person with the green eyes? I don't know what that means. What is going to happen to Casterly Rock? Are they going to address that at all? Or are we just going to get through this series finale without even touching on that? Is there a prince or a princess who was promised? What has Yara been up to? Yara was going to go over to the Iron Islands and set up a place for Dany to retreat to, but then Dany went nuts and burned all of King's Landing to the ground. These are things that we want to know the answers to, and I don't think the series finale is going to touch on any of that.
7 hells.
So join me on Sunday where we will watch the series finale of Game of Thrones and figure out if any of these questions are actually going to be answered in ways that are satisfactory. I just want to let you guys know that the final episode of our Game of Thrones reaction might be a little bit delayed, not too bad, but I'm actually going to be over in London interviewing Sophie Turner for the new X-Men film, Dark Phoenix, and don't worry, I'm going to make sure to get a Game of Thrones question in for her also. So I'll be seeing Dark Phoenix and preparing for that interview, and also I believe we got to figure out a way to watch Game of Thrones in the UK. So if you guys see this prediction video and know a surefire way for me to watch Game of Thrones while in the UK, drop it in the comment section down below because I definitely need to figure that out. So bear with me. We will have a reaction to the series finale and then a few more follow-up videos where we address major topics, including some of our favorite battles, some of our favorite characters, and a lot of other wrap-up stuff from Game of Thrones, just as a way to sort of show you guys appreciation for following along with us on this amazing binge session through all of the seasons of Game of Thrones. And again, of course, while you're here, go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. It will keep you up to date with all of the videos that we're posting here on CinemaBlend's YouTube page.